Welcome back. Today we're looking at chapter 4, section 4.2, writing an intercept form quadratic if we are given the x-intercepts and a third point. So we're really building off of what we did in 4.4.1. If you don't remember, I'd say go back and take a look at that video because we're just going to assume you can do that here. So step 1, we're going to write our intercept quadratic equation as described in 4.4.1. So if I'm given the roots -4 and 2, I can say x equals -4, add 4 to both sides, so I get x plus 4 equals 0. There's my factor. I can take x equals 2, subtract 2 from both sides to get one side equal to 0, and I get x minus 2 equals 0. Last thing, I take y equals a times my factors, or f of x equals a times my factors, and I've got this now in intercept form. Now, the trick that we're going to pull here is pretty clever. We're going to say if it goes through this point, well, I know that for this function, when x equals 0, y has to equal 16. So we're just going to substitute those values in there for x and y. So remember, x we replace with 0, and y we're going to replace with 16. Because we know for this equation that those values have to be true. The only thing we don't know now is our a value. So if we go with this, we've substituted in those values. The next thing we're going to do is evaluate within the parentheses. So 0 plus 4 is 4, 0 minus 2 is -2. So I get 16 equals a times, all in parentheses here, 4 times -2. Now I'm going to multiply those two together, and I get 16 equals a times -8. And then I want to get a by itself, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to unmultiply it by -8 by dividing all the terms by -8. And finally, that gives me that a is equal to 16 over -8, which is -2. So now I actually know what my a value is. It's -2. So when I go to rewrite my function, now I can actually put in that a value of -2. And the factors, x plus 4, x minus 2, they're just exactly what we found for that first step going back to 4.4.1. So this is a great time. Pause the video. Work through these practice problems, and when you're ready, unpause them, and we'll go through them together. Okay, so this first one, we've got zeros, -1 and 3 through the point 120. So my factors are going to be x plus 1 and x minus 3. I don't know my a value yet, so I'll leave that there. I can substitute in the point 120 for my x and y values. So 1 goes in where x used to be, 20 goes in where y used to be. And now I go through and I solve for a. So the first thing I'm going to do, inside the parentheses, follow order of operations. 1 plus 1 is 2. 1 minus 3 is -2. Now I'm going to multiply those together. I get 2 times -2 gives me -4. Now I want to get a by itself, so I'm going to divide everything by -4, and I get a equals -5. So I get y equals -5 times x plus 1, x minus 3. The next one, we're going to go through, do the same thing. So if my zeros are 3 and -7, I'm going to have x minus 3 and x plus 7. And I'll have that a value there. Then I'll substitute in -2 where x used to be and 5 where y used to be. Now I'm going to evaluate inside the parentheses. -2 minus 3 is -5. -2 plus 7 is +5. So I have 5 equals a times -5 times 5. Well, if I do -5 times 5, I get -25. A is equal to 5, and so I can divide everything by -25, and I get a equals -1/5. So I can substitute that back in where I used to have a. Everything else is exactly the same. The factors x minus 3 and x plus 7 stay totally the same. So if we do this from a graph, again, we just have to remember to look for the x values of our x-intercepts, so 3 and 5. So I'll have x minus 3, x minus 5. Now I can substitute, excuse me, I can write this where I don't know the a value and substitute in the point that I want it to go through. In this case, it's the third point I know. So it's this 4, negative 4. So if x equals 4, I replace x with a 4. And my y value of that third point is negative 4, so I make y negative 4. So this one looks different, but we're going through the same ideas. We've got our zeros, and we've got a third point. So now I evaluate inside the parentheses 4 minus 3, 1. 4 minus 5, negative 1. And if I do 1 times negative 1, I get negative 1. I want to divide everything by that negative 1. So I get negative 4 divided by negative 1. Oh, boy, that thing's not helping here. And I get a equals 4. So my final answer, y equals 4 times x minus 3 times x minus 5. We'll take a look at this one. We've got a third point here. This one's a y-intercept. Fun fact, I guess, doesn't really matter. We do have a third point. What we really need to recognize, though, is these are our x-intercepts, so these are going to be what gives us our factors. So I get x plus 2 as a factor from my solution of minus 2, and x minus 4 as a factor from my solution of 4. Evaluate inside the parentheses, 0 plus 2 is going to be 2, 0 minus 4 is negative 4, 2 times negative 4, negative 8. Divide everything by negative 8, and I get a equals, not that, one half. Okay, so hopefully that helps, and we will see you in the next video.